don't be that new young hire who like comes in slovenly dressed or like is always not around, or if it's like a remote job is never like available during work hours. Like put in the effort, because the most important thing you can do is make an impression in the first like 90 days.
Welcome everyone to the Tech Guide podcast, where we give actual advice to those wanting to break into tech or looking for their next gig. Today, we are joined by Jeff Richardson, a seasoned expert in data science, analytics, and AI, and a leader who's not only shaping the clinical research industry, but also inspiring the next generation of data enthusiasts in the classroom. If you're a student wondering how to land your first job in data science or how to transition from college to career with confidence, this episode is for you. From nailing your first internship to thriving in your early years post-graduation, Jeff is here to share invaluable advice, real-world insights, and the secrets to long-term success. I am so excited to welcome Jeff to the show. Jeff, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Ryan, very excited to be here.
I want to lay the foundation for someone tuning in. They're like, okay, Jeff Richardson, like, who is this guy? Let's talk a little bit more about what you're currently doing, some of the courses you teach as well.
Yeah, sure. Fair question. So my current full-time job is I am the Senior Vice President of Operations of a site that runs clinical research. Clinical research is how drugs are manufactured in the United States. I don't want to over-explain this to people, but there's lots of complexities around how that works. And my role is traditionally not a very data like deep role, but I actually have this role now because I've been able to apply a lot of sort of data techniques into making this more efficient and more effective. That's my full-time job. Basically, we find and then run patients through clinical trials in a way that's really effective and driven by data. And then I also teach statistics and data science at a state college in Connecticut, Central Connecticut State University, where I've been doing that for 2.5 years now.
Yeah, I got to say, Jeff, I wish you would have been my statistics teacher because I was awful at statistics. So maybe I would have got a better grade if you were.
It is such a, like, I mean, it's just, these kids are going to be, I assume, in these classes, but it's a terrible class. Like the whole thing, it's so, even in the middle of lectures, like I would often just stop and I'd be like, this is terrible. We're going to spend 3 weeks manually calculating standard deviations. Like, I get it. It's awful.
I love it. Well, then you're going to be the perfect person to talk about undergraduates that are pursuing a career in this. But before we do that, we got your baseline, but I want to ask you, like, what inspired you to pursue a career in like data science and statistics? Would love to hear that as well.
Yeah, so I kind of walked into this by accident. So I went to college for computer science and mathematics just broadly, not intending to focus on statistics or even data. But my first full-time job out of college was as a database administrator for a software company, which like tangential to computer science, but that was one of the positions that had been opened. And for most people coming out of college at this point, and even 15, 20 years ago, like you take what you can get. And it was an interesting time to jump into that as a career because like data at that point, like 20 years ago, and this is like, I'm old now. So that was like 21 years ago, was very novel and new. And like, it was no real like big career trajectory of like big data and analytics.
Yeah.
Reporting. Like there was nothing. Like there were no, there was just so like, there was really nothing. Like we're talking like SQL Server 2000 and like no reporting platforms beyond that. And like no AI algorithms for anything. Like predictive analytics was not a commonly taught or discussed thing at that point. So I walked into that and then parlayed that into a series of jobs, doing reporting and then business intelligence, different analytics stuff, AI stuff. Yeah. Went and got a master's degree in statistics and data science, and then just kept moving through different jobs and careers and applying data to those jobs. And it turns out that if you are good enough at Excel and explaining information and like a basic understanding of statistics, you can turn that into a pretty successful career.
I love that. And you have had quite the successful career in students. We're going to talk a little bit more coming up here on how you land that first job and have that successful career. But let's start with someone that's in like a program right now, a data science or statistics. That's what they're majoring in. That's what their focus is. Maybe they're a little like, I don't know if this is for me. Like, is this really what I want to do? Like, how would you advise students to identify if this is the right field for them while still in college?
So while they're in college, that's tough because like, I mean, I went to college, so I know what that's like. Yeah. And like, I didn't know anything about anything when I was in college and like at all, any, like even remote idea of what I really wanted to do, what I was passionate about in the future. I think now it's a little different. Like people can get a lot more visibility into jobs and careers. Like there's a lot of people who are like blogging about their like what would have been at the time like comical things to like have like a video series about like, here's my job as an actuary, or here's my job as a data engineer. But there are people on LinkedIn that I follow now who have 600,000 followers on LinkedIn, and they just post videos about their career as a data engineer at Airbnb. And like they get 10,000, 20,000 views a day on videos about like how they make ETL pipelines for moving Airbnb data. So you can get a really good sense of what that looks like. And if you're passionate about that, and if you like that, you can, kind of literally double click on those things and watch more of them.
Interesting. Yeah, I think it's a good advice to like see people that are in the field that maybe like 5 or more years of experience than you, and like find those types of people and like engage with those videos. Okay, let's just say someone's like, okay, I've engaged in those videos. I like, I like this. I'm going to do this. Let's talk about gaining experience to like land that first internship or a part-time job in the data science field. Like, what strategies would you recommend for building a stronger resume, specifically when it comes to data science? And
so this is I acknowledge this is on the surface and probably objectively terrible advice for anyone who wants a job. Like I'm just
Jeff, I think you guys
like asterisks, terrible advice. But go out and offer yourself for free internships, and like not like stuff like little gig work and things. Like find real companies where people, connect on LinkedIn to like as many people as you possibly can, and then just go on LinkedIn and message people and be like, hey, listen, I'm graduating from whatever college with whatever degree in statistics, data science, blah, blah, blah. Can I be an intern for you for like 2 months, 3 months, whatever? And like, it sounds terrible to say like you do this for free, because like 15 years ago, I wouldn't have done this, and I wouldn't have paid somebody like for free. But like now, like the industry is so saturated. There's so many people coming out with these like similar degrees. Like it's just a weird time. But you can really get in and get like, if you can get 2 of those on your resume, they don't have to be long. Like they can just be like names of companies and projects and jobs that you've done, like real things. That opens up tons of doors, right? You're going to pass through more automated resume screenings because you're going to have actual like real stuff on your resume. And like when someone goes and looks at it and wants to talk to you, you have real things to talk about. And you're probably just going to sit down and do Excel work for like 2 months in some like research project and build some Python scripts and do something. Like it's not going to be super complicated, but it gets you in the door and it starts conversations.
Yeah, I think that's a really, you might have said that's terrible advice, but I'm going to double down and say I did that for my first internship, actually, when I was in college going into my like senior year. It was basically a free internship, but yes, I didn't get paid, but still those skills helped me develop real skills, like on the ground type of skills that helped me land my first job. So I think if you have the financial means to do it, I think that is actually like great advice that you're giving.
There are some companies that won't allow you to have like an unpaid internship. Like, I mean, the company I work for now, like they really frown upon unpaid interns at all. So offer it. And then if they come back and they're like, oh, like I appreciate that, like, sort of reaching out, like, yes, we do have something we can work out. Like you at least start a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about starting that conversation. And let's talk about conversations with hiring managers. Let's just say you're applying for those first jobs. Are there any like specific roles that hiring managers look for? I know we just said get a free internship, but within those free internships, what are those specific skills you should be looking to develop to land that first job for an entry-level role?
So again, this is not bad. This is phenomenal advice. This is the most important advice I give to my students in class. We talk about this for days of class at a time. And I give this advice to anybody I'm interviewing, anybody I talk to, like go and learn Excel. That is the most important job skill in I want to say the world. I don't know. In data science, in analytics, in data, even like business, it is the most important thing to understand and have to be able to do that. And if you cannot go into an interview and you can't talk about what you can do, like in something like Excel, it looks really bad. And it's such a simple thing to go and like, it's not simple to go learn. Like you really need to sit down and like do a bunch of like stuff and problems in Excel. Like when I do like intro stats courses, the homework assignments that we do, some of them are actual written like homework assignment in tests, but most of them are, I make the kids actually do it in Excel and like kind of build the workbook in Excel and show your work in Excel. So you have to learn how to like do like comment formulas and formulas and do all of that in Excel. So you just have like an understanding of like references how do I do a little formula and do like a standard deviation in Excel, like equals STD dot whatever. Like it's the most important, because then you can go to a job interview and someone can be like, oh, can you do a VLOOKUP? And you probably know what that is.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, I think it's super important to learn those skills. And I want to ask, go into that job interview. Let's just say you get some skills, and now you're going in for like your first entry level job interview. What preparation would you advise these students to go? Do you do company research, recruiter research? What do you advise?
I mean, obviously, making a connection with the person you're talking to is huge. It's the most important thing to do.
Yeah.
Like, leading up to a podcast, right? You have a couple minutes to chit chat around, like just breaking the ice, right? So doing research, going on LinkedIn. Obviously, if you're in college and don't have a LinkedIn profile, make one.
Yeah,
and then start connecting with people as much as you can, as broadly as you can. And then when you're going to interview with somebody, do research. What I like to do, if I'm talking to somebody like that, if I'm having conversations like this, or interviewing people or talking to other executives and like doing like other outreach stuff, like go on LinkedIn and print out their LinkedIn profile page, like a dossier, and you have it as like as a thing, right? Know where they're from, know where they went to school, be able to talk about 2 or 3 things that is not work related with those people.
Yeah, I think that is so good, because I think one thing that I remember what I was doing is when I would get that recruiter, you get their email, whatever, you get that calendar invite. I always would go to their profile and like go see where they went to college at. And like, I love sports, so it was so easy for me to be like, oh, you went to like Arizona. Like, I know they're struggling in basketball this year, but like, how do you think they're going to do? Something like that. It's just great advice to actually be able to break that ice.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be surprised. Like, an interview might last with an entry level job for like a first level like interview. It's 15 or 20 minutes, and if you can spend 5 minutes of that making a connection, that's going to be a quarter or a third of the time they remember talking to you. It's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we've talked so far has been about like landing that first interview, like do not free work, but like a free internship, something that gives you skills at the very basis.
Try to get in as an intern somewhere and do projects. Yeah. However you can do that is the takeaway. Like, if it's free, don't be afraid to do that for 2 months.
I love that. Great. And then how to connect with like recruiters. But I think it's also important to like look internally. Let's just say I have a phone interview, a video interview tomorrow with you, Jeff. What would you tell me to do to look internally? Do I go over my resume? How am I best preparing to set myself up for success for that interview?
So research the company. Like, I can't tell you how many times I have given interviews and talked to people, and I have to spend 10 minutes explaining what the company they've applied to a job does. It happens all the time.
Yep.
It's surreal. And it happens a lot now because like you can go on LinkedIn and just apply to like 50 jobs or like easy apply.
Yep.
Right. Like it looks so bad if you go into a job and you don't know like how the company makes money. Like, what are the 3 lines of business they make money from? Right. What is the executive structure of the company look like? What do they sell? What are their products? What do you do? Where do you do business? Basic stuff like that. And then outside of that, if you're like trying to look in on yourself and figure out how you're going to prep, I use ChatGPT for like literally everything now.
Same.
So I would go on ChatGPT, I would load up the job description, and I would tell ChatGPT to pretend that it is a recruiter and talk about this job and simulate some questions and simulate some back and forth with it on how you're going to have a conversation. And then worst case, even if it goes off the rails and none of the things you came back with are on there, you have some things you can like some roadmap of a conversation you can have in your head.
That is so good. And that's actually really good. Kind of like a knowledge gap in my own mind, because I didn't have ChatGPT when I was applying for jobs. I haven't applied for jobs in a very long time. So I think that's a great piece of advice for students there. I'm sure a lot of students are already leveraging that. Okay, let's just say interview goes well.
So to be clear, like I think I've interviewed people who've done this, and like they've simulated with ChatGPT like parts of that, but really ask it to pretend it is interviewing you and go back and forth with questions and use it like it is like an interview chatbot.
That is so good. So students definitely take note of that. And let's just say you do that. Interviews are going well. You actually land that job. Heck yes, you're super excited, as you should be. It's your first job out of college. One piece of advice here that I want to ask is, do you negotiate that first salary?
I negotiate everything. And I think people should negotiate everything. If you don't negotiate everything, you should negotiate everything. Like, my wife hates that. Like, I'll negotiate stuff at like stores and embarrass her.
Yeah.
But certainly for your first job, I would negotiate I mean, I guess it depends. There's context around all of that. Like
Of
if
course.
you're applying in like some like crazy situation where there's 500 applicants and you like know that there's a lot going on there and you are just like happy to get in somewhere. And it's like, I don't know, some crazy, like you're getting a job as a software engineer at Facebook. Maybe don't poke the bear. Take that and run with that. Right. Or like some dream job. But for the most part, negotiate something.
Yeah.
Right. You're going to end up negotiating, probably not with the hiring manager anyways. You're going to negotiate with the recruiter, with HR or some other like faceless person who's going to go back and forth on things. But make sure you get stuff that you want and need, like adequate vacation time or whatever. There's a lot of nuances and little things you can negotiate for that make a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's what I think is really good advice. And they are offering it for you. And I've never heard of someone pulling back an offer because you negotiated. So maybe you have, but yeah.
If certainly that if you got a written offer and you go back and ask for a negotiation point, I've never heard of someone saying like, I offered you $80,000. You came back and asked for 90. I'm taking back the 80. The worst they can do is say no.
Exactly.
And the weirdest advice that stuck with me from like the 25 years now of working was the CEO of the first company I worked for. It's a real weird guy. He was a nudist, really strange fellow. Nice guy, very nice guy. Very good at sales. Don't be afraid to ask the question. Don't be afraid to make the phone call. Don't be afraid to get told no. That was his like big thing.
Yeah.
So like, if you don't ask the question, you're never going to know.
The worst they can say is no. So that is really good advice there. Let's talk about, okay, you're transitioning from college to work. What are the biggest challenges students face when moving from that classroom environment to like the workplace, and like how can they overcome that?
Yeah, I mean, that's such a great question. I mean, and I did this so long ago. I'm sure it was like massively traumatizing and upsetting at the time, but like everything is different, right? You have a structure, you have requirements, you have presumably like a dress code, a place to be. Like you can't like skip class anymore. Like it's a big difference. So my advice is just buckle down and do all of that, and don't be that new young hire who like comes in slovenly dressed or like is always not around, or if it's like a remote job is never like available during work hours. Like put in the effort, because the most important thing you can do is make an impression in the first like 90 days.
Yep.
Not even 2 days, whatever. Fine. You can go slack off, like great, whatever. But those first like 30, 60, 90 days, that is the most important. Everyone in the company is going to make an opinion of you in that time.
Yeah, and that is like such good advice. You can really set the tone. How do you set yourself up for success in the first 90 days? I know you just said like be on time, of course, like dress.
There is a book
like,
called The First 90 Days, which everyone should go. Everyone for their first job, everyone for any first job should go get that book. It's called The First 90 Days, and it is literally a book that outlines what you should do for any job in the first 90 days.
I love that. And for entry level, there.
I have it right there. This book.
I have read that book, actually. That is very funny, actually.
I've read this book so many times. I have like tags in it I haven't opened this book in 10 years probably, but from the last time I had this, there are tags in this from different jobs that I had that I use this as an outline to figure out different stuff to do.
Yeah, it's such good advice. And for someone that like, I want to peel that back like a little bit more here. So, is this like meeting with people that are outside your organization? Even if you're an entry level worker, it's still important to like meet cross functionally, meet with higher ups. Let's talk more in depth about that.
Sure. So what's your question?
So like, what more do you do in those first 90 days besides, of course, showing up on time, dressing nicely?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, well, I would go through this book, and there's like a detailed roadmap of what to do, like how you make a strategy for how you're going to interact with people, how you're going to handle yourself on a day-to-day basis, the deliverables that you're going to work out with your boss. Like the first thing, I mean, you need to figure out who your stakeholders are, who's like you're accountable to there, and like where to start making allies, friends, mentors, whatever that's going to be. A great piece of advice out of that would be like in that first 90 days, find somebody who you want to be, if not like an actual formal or informal mentor, like the person that you're going to emulate and try to like follow in what they're doing, and like kind of use them as like your guide to what you do. As far as advice for like people in that area, like try to find someone to be that mentor person. And I guess as you get your first job, like try to find somebody outside of that job, outside of that business, outside of that company that could act as like that independent mentor for you. Somebody you can like bounce ideas off of. hugely valuable. And like, I don't know, I have to speak for everybody, but like if a person coming out of college that I knew, even casually, came to me, like even over like LinkedIn or email or something, it was like, hey, listen, I'm graduating. I really want to find some place to like have a conversation, get some advice on how like to do whatever conversations. Would you consider like talking to me like once a month, once every couple of weeks about whatever, like a mentorship?
Yep.
99.9 times out of 100, someone's going to say sure.
It is such good advice, and finding a mentor, I think like someone that's like 3 to 5 years ahead of you. I think I said at the beginning of this podcast, I think it's invaluable advice. I want to ask you, like reflecting on like everyone that you have led, managed, kind of like onboarded, like who, you don't need to say who, but like what stuck out to like someone that stood out to you like a lot? Like, is there one thing that they did like very, very nicely?
As far as like people that worked for me or people that I worked for?
Worked under you, yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, the stuff like the employees that you always remember are the ones who like just come in every morning and like, how do I make your job? Like, hello, boss. Like, it's Monday morning. Great. How's your weekend? Super. What can I do for you this week to make your job easier? Like, you know, you have your job, your responsibilities. Your boss has their job, their responsibilities and stuff. But like everyone's fighting their own battles about whatever it is, right? What can I do for you this week to help de-stress your week? Just throw that out there, like once in a while. Most of the time they're going to be like, nah, nothing, just your job, blah, blah, blah. But sometimes they're going to be like, you know, like I spent like the weekend doing this like big analysis and like I made this Excel monstrosity and it's a disaster. Like, can you just clean it up for me? Make it look professional. Here you go. And a couple hours. And like, they're going to remember that for like 10 years.
I think that is such a good question to ask your bosses is like, how do I make your life easier? Like, what can I do for you?
Yep.
I want to ask, as we kind of go down to like continuing success here, for students like aiming to build a successful and impactful career, like what mindset or habits should they cultivate within those first few years after graduation, like really set themselves up for success?
Solve problems for other people. That is the most important thing you can do. Be seen in the data, math, kind of programming, business analytics, business, whatever, an entire sphere of like work. Be known as a person that solves problems and like can go in and just like, how can I help you? How can I solve this problem? Like, don't complain about stuff. Don't like whatever, like get your work done, obviously. But like, how do I work this problem and help you solve this problem? What can I do for you to make this go away? How do I make this better? How do I automate this thing? Like, just go in there with the mindset of like, how do I help whoever it is? That should be your coworkers, your superiors, anyone that works for you. Like, always have that like, I think it's like a servant leadership kind of mindset. Like, just always be trying to help do whatever. And then you're going to be seen as a positive force in whatever you're doing. And people are going to want to naturally include you in more projects. You'll get better projects. You'll get more visible projects. You'll get included on more teams. You'll be more apt to get recognized for promotions and bonuses and whatever. You are the positive problem-solving person. It's not a huge ask. Like, some of it's like, you know, fixing an Excel file or like working on a process or whatever. But try to solve some of these problems.
Yeah. So to double down on that, like you would say the number one trait for someone to develop after school would be those problem-solving skills.
Not only the problem-solving skills, but the mentality that you go in there and like, in addition to whatever it is your job is, to offer to help people solve their skills with whatever tool set you have, right? It's like use whatever you're good at to help them solve some problems.
I like it.
And just offer that positively.
I like it. Well, I am positive this has been a phenomenal episode. I want to just ask you like one more question. General advice to just people, undergraduates right now. Like, what's one more piece of advice that you would give them? Overarching advice here.
I mean, I have so many different things. Like, obviously, like it's hard to get your foot in it at any place right now to get a job. Like, it's hard to be seen. Resume systems are all like automated and blocking everything, and 1,000 people apply for every job. Networking is the most important thing you can do. Like fake networking on LinkedIn, just connections, hugely valuable. But real life, real networking, where you find people in industries, talk to them, make friends with them, like real face-to-face stuff. I love it. Join like wherever you are, there's local clubs for whatever it is. If you're doing database engineering, there's like database clubs, and statistics stuff. There's like local stats groups. Like join those groups, meet those people. That like interaction is the single most important way that you can get into those companies.
I like it. Well, Jeff, I want to thank you so much for your time today. This has been awesome. Just like walk us through this story arc of like how to land your first job, how to stand out. So I want to thank you so much for being here. Last question. If someone's like, oh my God, this Jeff guy is awesome. And you know what? I'm actually going to reach out to him and have him be my mentor. Where can they best connect with you and learn more about you?
Probably on LinkedIn. Find me on LinkedIn. I assume the link will be somewhere in show notes or something somewhere. Reach out and I'm happy to talk to anybody.
Jeff, you're the absolute man. Thank you so much for being here today.
Ryan, thank you very much.